my boat.
Fuck my boat.
This is Jordan. Fuck my boat.
This is Jeremy. Fuck my boat into pieces.
This is Emily. Fuck my boat to hell.
This is Drew, and I guess if my boat wants to be fuck it.
This is Lucy. Consent is important for boats too.
There we go. Context is key. Consent is important, and we are ready.
Context is king.
Context is king. Welcome to Al Bummer,
folks. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Al Bummer. The show. Lucy, you okay?
Sorry, oh shit, I'm not recording. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
Emily's gonna miss this boat.
This is Lucy, and I forgot that we didn't just clap for fun on here.
Folks, welcome to another episode of Al Bummer, the show where Jordan Olds listens to Liz Phair and has a wonderful time. I'm a huge fan now.
Yay.
Oh my God.
You uncovered the lead. I'm Jordan Olds.
There we go.
Jeremy goes next.
Come on, give the bits. Let's get bits.
Yeah,
Come on.
All right. Well, hi, I'm Knuckles the Hedgehog.
There it is.
You might not recognize me because I'm covered in white hot cum.
Nice.
I'm Emily Panic, and you might not recognize me because I used to be full of white hot cum, but recently, I jizzed on Jeremy.
Nice.
Yay.
I'm calling HR.
It's still hot. Piping hot. Lucy.
Hi, I'm Lucy Steiner, and you might not recognize me because I'm not some fucking bit factory, Drew.
You're a cum factory. Hi, I'm Drew Kaufman, and this isn't cum. I bought one of those shirts that was like a test. Oh man, the mirror is so hard. I can't figure out which side is not the pocket. It's not cum. It's just like screen printing test material. What do you call that?
All right. So it's poser cum.
Yes.
Poser comes too.
Yeah.
Highway to the Metal Zone.
More posing, more cum.
Yeah.
It is genuinely upsetting. Here's the thing. I love that song. I think it's great that it exists, but every time there's something upset about the white part of the cum.
What about the hot? What about the hot part?
Well, hot is normal though. It's like a functioning body, and
like,
white is, I guess, normal too.
That's the color
white,
of it.
It just feels like I don't know. I can't tell you
the two
exactly
together make
why.
it sound like you're saying it is white hot. Together, it sounds like it's like molten cum.
Oh, it sounds like a Lou Reed thing, and you're like, no.
Oh,
You're gonna get third-degree cum burns.
The Lou Reed, yeah.
Third degree cum burns with everything on them.
Yeah. But folks, today we are
Cum
talking
Burns
about
is my favorite documentarian.
cum burns.
Cum Burns' assistant, Mr. Jizzers.
Yeah. Cum Burns' Bed-Stuy documentary. Folks, we're talking about self-titled, we're talking about Liz Phair's self-titled album. I can't stop thinking about white hot cum.
Somebody clip that out of context.
Yeah.
I've already remixed it.
Great. Listen, our skin might be different, but all of our cum is white and hot.
So true.
So true, bestie.
Go off, Jordan.
Speak on it.
Mm-hmm.
Ratio.
Listen. All right, but folks, we're talking about Liz Phair's self-titled album, Lucy. How do you think this album happened?
How do you think this cum got camed?
Well, Jordan, clearly some punk bitch couldn't handle Liz Phair's cum. Not its velocity, not its power.
Not its viscosity.
Not its charisma.
Never underestimate the cum of a mother.
Some cum has charisma.
The cum of a mother protecting her children.
You really think about it, children just cum.
Did you finish answering the question? How it got made?
Keep going, Lucy.
No, I'm finished. I already blew my load.
All right, right, yeah. All right, now that Lucy's answer has oh God, this is disgusting. Emily, do you want to set this? Emily, this was this was the album that you wanted to discuss because it is another album with a famous negative review. Do you want to get into this?
Sure. So I thought this would be a good album. I suggested it before I had ever listened to it. And it's because, gosh, I wonder if my audio is recording because it doesn't look like it's like the thing is moving. That's odd.
Next time you say that, make sure I'm drinking even more water than humanly possible.
Do you know why?
Oh man,
we have a lot of fun.
We have a lot of fun. I'm gonna reset you up for that, Emily.
Okay.
No, I'm keeping that. That's so funny.
Keep
Just
it.
keep
It's so
talking.
funny.
I'm gonna do it to help her anyway. You psychopath.
Let me get through this. I got it. It's fine.
Emily's a full cummed adult. She can take care of herself.
I am full of cum and ready to mingle. So had a rough day. So I chose this album because I had heard about it because actually this woman, Megan O'Rourke, who wrote a very blistering review for the New York Times about this album, went to school with Jamie, my husband. And there's no like interesting stories around that, except that his friend and I were talking about it. And he was like, oh yeah, there was this album. And Megan O'Rourke, this girl we know from school, wrote this review of it. And then Liz Phair wrote a retort. But then the more I looked into it, I was like, oh, Pitchfork also gave it a 0. And
a few places really trashed it.
Yeah, there was general backlash to this album, but I think it's good. I really like it. So
yeah, I like it for like, I think it's a really sick rock record, and I'm like kind of mad I don't like I have a soft spot because I love watching like a Legally Blonde. I love to watch a Freaky Friday and whatever. And this sounds like every song in this record could open one of those movies. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm here for it.
Definitely. A lot of these sounded to me like the better songs are kind of along that track, and the worse ones I felt like were like early 2000s like teen television show fake band on the show, like what they would be right. Like I was thinking of
like they'd be playing at the Bronze in Buffy.
Yeah, like I was thinking of like the episodes of Degrassi where they're in bands and you're like, when did you guys form a band?
Yeah.
I don't remember this plot arc at all, but you guys are in a band now?
That's my favorite shit.
Yeah, Jeremy and Jordan, is this your first time listening to Liz Phair?
Yes.
Okay. And Emily, you listened to Liz Phair before?
I had, but I'm certainly not well versed.
What about you, Lucy?
I recognized one song from this album in retrospect, but like I don't really have any experience with Liz Phair. Whoa. I think on several occasions I've gotten Liz Phair and Lilith Phair confused.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think at one point I thought Lilith Phair was an artist and Liz Phair was a lesbian folk.
I thought,
festival.
yeah, you thought that like Lilith Phair was like Liz Phair's festival.
Right. Yeah.
It's her Ozfest.
Yeah. Lilith Phair is actually a ancient Grecian rule for dividing up cum, and the person once the cum split in half doesn't get to keep the cum. I like Liz Phair a lot, and I actually know Liz Phair fairly well. Fairly, PH.
Nice.
Not fairly, brothers. Well,
Yeah.
No, because we don't. We don't
that joke was
boys.
Dumb and Dumberer. Go ahead.
Green Book. The
Is that a Fairly Brothers movie?
it's one of them. It's a brother.
Brother joint.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear they broke up.
Yeah, they got split in half. They were fighting over cum. I like Liz Phair. Her
Me too.
breakout
now.
album. Yeah, her breakout album Exile in Guyville is very much like the song that we make so many jokes about, the Hot White Cum. Like it's funny that this album got a 0.0 from Pitchfork because it got it for the reasons that I thought that Jet might have gotten it, which is that like it's this like feeling of it's so commercial and part of this like early 2000s. Like it's literally produced by the same guy who did Avril Lavigne during this time.
Right.
Liz Phair is actually scoring television, which is why it sounds like television. It's a job that she like started taking when she became a mom. But if you go back like 8 years, her breakout album is this one called Exile in Guyville, and she has this song called Fucking Run, which is just about like having sex and walking away. And there's a chorus that's just like fucking run, even when I was 17. And then on the very last one, she goes fucking run, even when I was 12. And so a friend of the show, Sam Nolman, played that for me like 10 years ago. And I thought it was so cool. And I did like more research on it. And I found out that she was like doing a character. She purposefully, when she writes her music, she doesn't necessarily like talk about herself. She creates kind of like this introspective character to talk about like the things that she wants to say or like, you know, storytelling. It's interesting music. And so for that lens to then be applied to, you know, this album, which is like less of that weird indie early 90s coffee store music and more commercial rock that's going to make her money because she needs money, because money is the thing that parents need for kids.
She explicitly talks about that. How she was like, I wanted to make money off of my art.
Yeah.
But thematically, it's the same. And what's interesting about it is that like everything it's kind of the exact same thing that Beck did, except for that Beck got like lauded for it because he wasn't a woman talking about hot white cum.
Well, this is something I wanted to bring up, is like how interesting it is that like seemingly most of the blowback for this album was about her like commercializing and trying to, you know, sell to a broader audience. When it's the year 2003, like you're already in the height of the indie rock boom. Like you've got bands fucking like Arcade Fire is probably already hitting stadiums at this point. You know, you've got like serious bands making serious money. And like, I feel like pretty much all the time bands like the Decemberists or like, I don't know, who's another band? The Shins, whoever, it doesn't matter. Like bands from this time period, like signing to major labels and like people like Pitchfork and like Spin Magazine, you know, coming out and being like, that's awesome. It rules. I can't believe these guys are making money. That's fantastic. But for whatever reason, when it's like a woman who's committed the deadly sin of being over 30, it's a big problem.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, obviously a big part of the blowback is not just that she went commercial, but it's that they had put her on this very specific pedestal for Exile in Guyville. And they, you know, so the thing that she had originally been lauded for, I mean, to them, she traded it in favor of being commercially successful. Mm-hmm. And, you know, all of the criticism was like, she used to be so smart and witty, and now she's trading it in for acting like slutty and not being as clever or something. But she is essentially, they do seem like companion pieces when you listen to both albums.
Listening to this album for the first time, like, it's very witty. Like the lyrics are good. The songs are really like, this is a good version of this. It's very funny to hear that to reviewers at the time, they were like, "Oh, this production is so manufactured." Like, dude, anyone I know would kill to have their album sound like this. To have
the fucking
drums,
guitar tone on that first song, it fucking honks, man. It sounds so good,
dude. That's like why people buy a Big Muff and they can't get it to sound like that ever.
A Big Muff?
A Big Muff, yeah.
It's also funny to me that like that this like album would like broadly be perceived as like super commercial. Like yeah, there are definitely very commercial sounding songs on it, but like there are also some really weird songs. Like Little Digger is a weird, creepy song.
Yeah.
Like
I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked that it was weird and
for
creepy.
a second here.
Yeah.
I think it should be illegal to have a song like this on your album. When you also have songs like okay, so like when I heard like Rock Me and like Hot White Cum and whatever, like those are kind of like goofy, silly songs that I kind of laugh at and whatever. And like for the most part, I'm listening to this like, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. The guitar tone is nice. And then Little Digger, I mean, I don't know what your guys' reaction to this was. Maybe again, it's because I'm a parent and it hasn't exactly been an emotionally easy week for me overall. But I fucking cried today. I did not expect to cry today, but I really actually fucking sat and cried alone at my desk for like 15 minutes. I had to stop the album and really fucking just take a minute.
You know that, yeah, well, Little Digger is about her divorce and how her child is going to take it. But I know what you're talking. Yeah,
dating other men and
yeah,
specifically,
which is funny because you're hitting the nail on the head of why it's weird that it got criticism, because they're just like, how dare a single mom be sexual? But then it also is kind of like when you have that one friend on Instagram who's really horny and like in between like posting like thirst traps, they're like, R.I.P. grandma, I'm gonna miss you so much. Everybody knows someone like that.
Absolutely, yes.
That's what it did
I'm
feel
sorry
like.
that I do that. So sue me.
Emily, your grandma also was really hot.
I mean, I literally did just post a photo after
Of your thirsty grandma?
No, I posted a thirst trap on a gravestone. Anyway, I was at my grandma's funeral, but I didn't say that in the post, so you can't criticize me for it.
I didn't even catch that. I'm sorry.
R.I.P.
She's in heaven now, reunited with her ass.
Reunited
Anyway,
with
Little Digger is a beautiful song.
my
Yeah.
grandfather's white
Yeah.
hot cum. Go on.
It is weird and a little bit creepy, and there is like some like lyrical choices that I found a little strange in it. But overall, it is like it's up there with a couple of other songs in terms of like genuine emo for parents. Just like the kind of songs that like you listen to and you're like, fuck, I'm gonna let my son down one day.
Aw. Is that a genre that you like? Like emo
if
for
I'm
parents?
Generally, if I'm in a bad mood and I want to get into a worse one, which is for whatever reason something I do, there
I
are a
feel
couple of
that.
songs that this is going to get added to the playlist of that I'll like listen to, like really fucking hurt myself.
Oh no.
This is, I mean, here, Jeremy, you're in the majority of that. Most upsetting content is all the rage. That's what people are like. What if this could fucked myself up in my own house?
Yeah.
Yeah, Liz Phair was
You know?
really ahead of the curve with this one.
Yeah, for sure. Jeremy, you spoke earlier that people were praising bands for getting signed. Like, I'm not totally sure I remember that.
I do remember
Does
it for
anybody
bands
else?
like it's bands like Decemberists, bands like the Shins. I remember specifically actually an article in it was either in Spin or in Pitchfork about Against Me's album New Wave. And I remember the sentence, it was something along the lines of like, in this day and age of bands like, you know, the Shins and the Decemberists being praised for major label moves, Against Me is the first band of the new millennium to successfully sell out. Which I thought was a very fascinating way to put it. Especially because Spin gave them Album of the Year for that.
Also, it wasn't successful. It
New Wave, yeah, crashed.
It crashed
really
and
badly.
burned.
But it was an incredible album.
I love that album, but
I think it's probably their best.
it might be. This is not a,
We're not
this is
here to talk about Against Me.
What I think is interesting about that, though, is everything that you just named are actually bands. Even Against Me, like, even though it can be Laura mostly, like, Liz Phair was a singer-songwriter. And there's always a little bit of a weird kind of thing when a singer-songwriter gets moved up in status. Because she has a band, obviously, but she's not known for working with the same people. Where it's like, this is...
Is she not? I thought...
No, but she's known as
did.
Liz Phair. She's not known as the Liz Phair and the Funky Bunch. You know what
Liz
I mean?
Phair and the Lilith
What-
Fair, for
but,
example.
But still, but...
And the Hot White Cum Players. No, think of like an Elliott Smith. Like, you don't know who Elliott Smith played with.
Right, you don't know them, but it's usually the same. It's usually
Sure,
the
sure,
same
sure,
band.
But it's
like-
but ultimately like it's her name on the record, it's her
Right.
name on the marquee. So like
Right.
when you're saying, for example, I hate Against Me, they sold out, you're saying 4 people suck. And when you say like Liz Phair, I keep wanting to say Lilith Phair now. When you say Liz Phair sold out, you're saying you personally, you human woman with a name and identity, you fucked up.
Yeah.
So it is a little tough, I think, comparatively.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I just meant the concept. The backing band is usually the same, even if like an artist.
Oh, that's not necessarily true. I mean, Jack White always tours with different groups depending on like which of his projects he's doing. He has different backing bands. Alex Cameron has changed up his backing band in different formations. Foxygen did it.
Well, like Justin is usually always his. I'm just saying, like it doesn't.
A better example might be no, it doesn't matter. But what a better example might be like Tegan and Sarah, who have always worked with people on different albums, and sometimes the touring musicians aren't on albums. You're not really thinking about Tegan and Sarah as a group. You're thinking of as 2 people who write songs and are known for originally starting acoustic and then switching into more accessible pop as their career progressed, and they had several albums just like Liz Phair.
Right. Well, the point is that Liz Phair is the only one out there taking the hits.
Right.
Like, taking her... Yeah, that fucking sucks. I mean, what can you say other than it's just very blatant, like, sexism? It's a double standard. Or is it really that, like, when you listen to her older material, does this really feel like that big of a departure to you guys?
Sonically, I can see it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it is. I mean, a couple of thoughts that I have about that are that, yes, it's blatant sexism. And yes, because she came out as this one thing that everybody held it against her. Because I get, they were like, oh, you're putting yourself up as this like feminist icon. And in now, how are young girls going to look up to you that you're really embracing your sexuality, but doing it in a way that we don't approve of? But it's also so funny for people to hear that people criticized her for this supposedly commercial slick production sound, when there's artists like Ariana Grande now, and like what we would consider slick commercial production is so far and away, like so much more robotic than like this very warm production.
Yeah.
That is poppy and is slick in ways, but it's like a good Fiona Apple record. It's just like, it's really well produced. It sounds sonically amazing, but it's it's still very human.
Totally.
Yeah.
In the context of like some of like oh, sorry, you go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh no, you go for it.
I was just going to ask people, like, in the context of like some of like the unfair criticism, like, do you guys feel like this specific like review of it was fair, or do you think it was just like a part of?
You mean the Pitchfork one?
Yeah.
Or the New York Times one?
The New York Times, the ones that Jamie's friend wrote.
Not friend.
She is my friend, though. So if you could please tread lightly.
Of the pod, actually.
I mean, I don't think it's totally fair. I don't think that all of her criticisms really land. I think the review is maybe more nuanced than I originally realized, because like right off the bat, it has an inflammatory line that says, Liz Phair has committed an embarrassing form of career suicide, which was the pull quote from that. And that's like pretty harsh, but she talks about certain songs with a little bit more nuance, but yeah, overall, I don't really think it's fair criticism.
That's definitely not a fair criticism, because that one song on this album has like 17 times more plays than her other songs that are from the previous albums that were more aligned with that original sound she was going for.
Yeah, it's definitely not a career suicide. Like, this is Why Can't I is her biggest song.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. That song, I was like, oh, that's from this? That's a Liz Phair song? I was moshing. I loved it. The song is sick.
I thought it was also interesting in that New York Times article that like the comparison to Avril Lavigne is made as this sort of like sort of huge negative, oh my God, could you believe like she wants to sound like Avril Lavigne, the possibly most enduring pop artist of that generation.
Right, yeah.
Also, it's like, that's such a fucked up.
Most enduring.
Like,
Possibly, yeah. I mean, her career has stretched so much further than a lot of her.
well,
And
it
honestly,
paused.
some of that
it paused
stuff-
for a while.
And some of that's-
Jeremy, that is a wild statement. I'm
It
with
did
it.
not pause for a while. She just went to Japan and made shitloads of money defining a generation of pop there.
No, honestly, I completely agree with you, Jeremy. And also, like, I think a lot of that stuff holds up way better than like other pop from that time.
I
Like,
just think it's not.
Girlfriend.
I think it's
I listen to Girlfriend pretty regularly.
that is a song written by John 5, which is very funny.
Who cares? What does that matter?
Well,
It's not a diss. I'm just saying it's a fun fact.
But
Yeah.
It's a Snapple fact.
But wait.
You mean she doesn't write her own music?
Avril Lavigne can't read. Everybody knows that. That's why her name is. That's why her name is spelled wrong. It's actually April Lavigne.
Yeah.
But I can tie it back to Avril Lavigne though, which is that this concept of like Avril Lavigne doesn't write her own songs. Somebody hands her a piece of paper, and she reads it, and there's a bunch of stock beats that come from this guy called The Matrix who happened to work on this
It's a
Liz Phair
trio.
album. Yeah, The Matrix is actually inside all of us, but
Right.
but
like my, say it with me, white.
Right?
Hot come.
Super. But there's what I'm trying to say though is that like so Liz Phair has 4 albums of like the most esteemed thing in the world in the 90s is the hurt singer-songwriter. Someone who talks about their emotions over an acoustic guitar and makes as little money as possible. And so for her to make music that sounds like something like Britney Spears probably doesn't write most of her songs. Christina Aguilera doesn't write most of her songs. To purposely sound like The Machine so that she could get money is like heinous in the eyes of Pitchfork, who are, fucking 2003 assholes living in Williamsburg before they had bodegas.
Yeah. Did you see that writer, I sent you guys that thread, that the writer who wrote that 0-star review basically retracted that. And he wrote this thread of tweets basically being like, I was 19 years old. She was ahead of her time and it clearly went over my head, what she was trying to do. And I mean, and I think, and he says a bunch of stuff. He writes a whole thread about basically just being like, I was wrong. I was stupid. It was really cringy. It was really pretentious. And she's great.
A backpedaler.
Yeah.
It is a classic Pitchfork move.
Yeah.
They've done that so many times where they like trash something when it comes out, and then like a decade later they realize like, oh wait, this no longer is in line with what a cool person thinks.
That's because they just started making money 10 years ago.
Yeah. Like I remember they trashed the Neutral Milk Hotel album when it first came out. They like made fun of him for singing songs about the Anne Frank diary. What is this guy, fucking 9?
I will. I
think they were right in that instance, but they did revise it to a 10 out of 10.
I will say that that's the one thing that I will align with Pitchfork on is that I really want to bully a band called Neutral Milk Hotel. I hate that name. That name has
It's a
bothered me
terrible
for
name.
years. It's ridiculous.
Wait till you hear the riffs, Jordan.
Oh, how dare they? I do want to
Avery
mention.
Island's a
I
great
brought
album.
up. I do want to mention that I was not saying the John 5 thing to take anything away from Avril Lavigne. I just really think that song being written by a guy that looks like a clown from space is extremely funny.
It is.
What is it?
That's
I don't know who
just
John
fun.
5 is, actually.
He was Marilyn Manson's guitarist, and now he's Rob Zombie's guitarist.
Yes, I do.
He has like bleach blonde hair, and he has like a Joker face, and he's shreds. His shredding sounds like the Dillinger Escape Plan. It's extremely funny.
That rules. I was picturing Johnny 5 from Short Circuit, personally.
Also funny. Also very funny. But I think it's really fucked up that you hear this album and instead of you go to the bands that sound like this, that I think that it's indicative of a lot of different, like a bad thing that music reviewers do is they take, there's good and bad in every genre, and you can kind of tie anything to whatever the fuck you want. Like Avril Lavigne is not cool at this point, so they tie the string to her as opposed to, you know, Foo Fighters or Hole or whatever. Like, she's on the cover of the album naked with Kurt Cobain's guitar. That's the guitar that he plays.
Yeah, it's the Jag Stang, right?
It's like a or a duo. I think it might be a duosonic, but it's like, it doesn't matter.
It looks enough like the Jag Stang.
Yeah, like whatever. It is a little. It's fucked up that they just did that, and I think the sounds on this record sound closer to like a Live Through This, and like that album is incredible and has every good review ever, and I think lyrically it has more in common with that. It just, since Liz Phair is an extremely good fucking singer, and the album is like every note is perfect, that they're just like, it's Avril Lavigne, as opposed to like.
But that's another thing that they bring up in multiple reviews, that she's not known for hitting the notes. I think the New York Times review was like, we're always hilarious, like wondering if she's going to hit the notes. And like, I think the Pitchfork review said, you know, she never was known for being a good, excuse me, singer or guitar player or something. There's all these
fuck off.
It's
like
just so funny to your.
Neither was Kurt. Kurt Cobain is a shitty guitar player.
Getting better at it. That's so insane.
Right? Yeah.
You have to remember also, like, if you listen to the song "Fucking Run," it's almost sung in a monotone way, like she sings the way that I speak. Which is very from the nose. It's. I'm not defending the criticism. I think the criticism is horseshit, and it's just people looking for something. But it is, you know, like. Can I give you another example of this? Actually, that's kind of recent.
I would love one.
I would love to give you one. So this album, you know, they're like, how dare she be sexy? She's on the cover, potentially naked behind a guitar. Meanwhile, like every other album has the same shitty 90s, like, we don't know what Photoshop is, so we're just going to give you a little thing. You know, like, they're not amazing album covers. So in 2007, Nelly Furtado put out her third album, which is the one where the song Promiscuous Boy is on. And
in 2007?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So this is the same person who did I'm Like a Bird, I Want to Fly Away. So she does an album where she's like being sexy and talking about her sexuality, which is something also that birds do. Birds are notoriously horny. So she
don't say.
Yeah.
So she puts out this album and it gets fucking panned. I mean, people tear it apart. They say exactly the same thing they're saying about Liz Phair's on this album. And the only reason that I know this is because a couple of months ago, one of the songs from that album got remixed and became like a TikTok viral song. And it's really good. I mean, it's a really, really good song. And I've been listening to that album while I run. I fucking love this 2007 album by Nelly Furtado. And it's like, I went back and I read those reviews and I'm like, God, this is so fucking weird and sexist. It's called Lose. The album came out in 2006. Promiscuous Girl is on it, but the song that got remixed is called Say It Right. And the remix of it is just the song sped up, and it's really good. Everybody should listen to the Say It Right remix. You might have even already heard it if you're on all these dumb apps like we are.
To even bring in an even more recent example of this, I was thinking a lot about Lil Nas X and how he started his career with this kind of like goofy, child-friendly, you know, Old Town Road, and then his second album has like him lap dancing the devil and whatever. Like, and people were. I mean, there are several other intersections there in that example, but it is still a similar sort of a thing where it's like where the culture at large kind of like puts you into this one box.
Absolutely.
That is like what, not asexual, but like desexual, I guess, desexualized. Like they take away that element of your humanity. And then once you are like, well, actually, I'm an artist and I'd like to express the whole of myself, then people are like, no, actually, you're the cowboy guy. We
don't want to hear about your holes.
But we're really not cool with this one.
Yeah, I mean, to his credit, I appreciate how much he has doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on just being like, fuck you. I really hope
he just keeps going.
Super gay.
So good.
New levels of gayness not even thought possible.
It's so good.
So funny and just so like, man, he is such a pro at everybody at going after everybody who comes for him.
Oh yeah. And he really knows when to clap back too. Like I think like him saying that he had sex with that right wing, the gun girl's dad. Him saying that he fucked the Gun Girl's dad on Twitter, I think, is one of the classic moments of that site.
Lauren Boebert.
Caitlin Bennett, I think it is.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Cumlin Bennett.
Hit a girl named Caitlin Bennett in the face in high school.
They're very hittable, apparently.
Yeah. The closed fist.
Actually, I want to give Jeremy a shout out because I remember at a Giant Bomb meeting once, Jeremy was like, I just listened to the Lil Nas X EP and it's great. This was like 4 years ago. And I was like, the Old Town Road person has another song. It's going to be garbage. And we were like, listen to the song Panini. And man, that is a fucking good song.
I didn't even know what it was. It was the first time I heard of it. Of Lil Nas X.
It honks big time. The size of that fucking clown horn. Woo,
yeah.
You gotta be like squeezing it like this to honk that big.
Beep, beep. That song, beep, beep.
Beep, beep.
Beep, beep, Richie.
It is annoying that, we talk about, I feel annoyed that I defended music criticism in the last episode and Drew was like, it's worthless. And then we come to this and I'm like, this is one of the most worthless literally, even the reviewer himself comes out and goes like, yeah, it was worthless, wasn't it? I was just trying to be a bag of shit. And I think that is a big problem with the concept of reviewing anything, is that it just becomes about, it becomes about you making yourself as a critic an artist, and that's
right.
Annoying, as opposed to trying to literally be helpful. I'm trying to think of like a version of a negative like critique of something that is actually helpful in any way, and I'm not sure that I can.
Not a public one anyway. I mean, there are definitely contexts in private between creative contemporaries where like sitting somebody down and saying like, hey, you could do this riff better or whatever. Like there's definitely times where it's valuable to hear a negative criticism of your work for sure. But it's definitely not in the public domain. Like definitely not.
I mean, you don't think it could ever be? Like that. I feel like it could be. I mean, I don't know. I'm
just trying to think of one.
I'm saying out loud without thinking about it. I feel like it could be valuable. I just think it has to come from a good place that's not just setting out to make a name for yourself by shitting on someone else's art, and just coming to it as a fan and thoughtfully and in an anthropological way or something.
I think like the main thing is that like, sorry.
No, go ahead, Lucy.
I think also like one of the things that just annoys me in general is like the main criticism can't be that they're trying to be successful. Like it's that can't be the sole argument against it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like literally this is separation of the artist from the art, which is a very complex thing. And just to clarify again, my statements on criticism being pointless, I think criticism is fine. I just meant that the original purpose of criticism was, should I spend this money on this thing? And you don't need that anymore because everything is free. At least you get like a sample of it. But I will say that to play the devil's advocate, like criticism leading to things, sometimes leading to a positive change is like a slippery slope. I mean, the best example, of course, is like if we allow the audience to dictate things versus the artists, you have the positives, which is like, hey, maybe Sonic the Hedgehog shouldn't look like a weird little rat fucker thing. Maybe he should look like a cartoon that makes children happy. But then you get in that other situation of like, hey, maybe Star Wars should only have white people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. What does that have to do with criticism?
Well, Drew's talking about like fan criticism, like fans, like loud fans on the internet dictate every move that Disney makes, and that's why everything is.
But this is a somewhat new phenomenon, because before it was a rarefied group that were distinguished and had these platforms, and it is a whole new landscape now with Substacks and Twitter and message boards and stuff.
The connective tissue there, though, is that as the critics have lost their power and the audience has gained it, because that's who gets heard the most, no one really cares if the New York Times gives a bad review to a movie that's still going to make billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
That's where criticism is starting to not matter. And in a weird way, it didn't really matter with this Liz Phair album because it made a lot of money and people are listening to it and talking about it 20 years later. Yeah. But if the fans, the people who put the money into it, they're the ones, it's almost like you have a corporate lobbyist of millions of people,
Okay, well, kind of in some ways it speaks to the power of reviewers to either in the case of Jet to completely kneecap somebody, and in the case of Liz Phair to completely try to kneecap somebody and spectacularly fail. Right? It's both of them got these sort of 0 out of 0 or 0 out of 10 reviews. Both of them are kind of in the same place where it's somebody just saying this isn't even remotely worth your time to even consider listening to. And one of them is by this point they're making a lot of money and they're doing okay, but they're still a rock band on their second album, And Liz Phair has the might of a major label behind her. It's just an interesting perspective, I guess, to see the two ways that a zero can change somebody's career, I guess.
Well, the New York Times has so much weight at this point, and Pitchfork is kind of they're still a fringe outlet.
Yeah.
I think.
But the interesting thing with the New York Times is the primary audience for pop music, pop singers in particular, it's not exactly the New York Times readers, It's
it's
kids, it's young people, and young people aren't aren't picking up the Times and they're taking a shit in the morning, being "Whoa, I see the Liz Phair album is derivative."
Well, I think that's kind of the key thing, and that's also it's similar to what Drew was saying about public response, the criticism of this movie, or I'm sorry, of this album, is that it's cookie cutter bullshit. Is essentially they're it's derivative, and the thing is, derivative things a hit is a hit. Why Can't I is a hit. I've heard that song everywhere and I love it. And it doesn't the review has nothing to do with whether people will like this album, which is bizarre.
Yeah, you're also forgetting, Jeremy, that what Liz Phair, her target demo is New York Times readers. She is a very good songwriter who writes lyrics that are introspective and interesting.
But this is kind of, I guess this is the crux of it, right? Is that it's this album represents her transition, or her attempted transition, or her successful transition from being a New York Times artist to being a people who pay money for records in way larger numbers artist, right? Mm-hmm. The people who bought this album and made it successful, the people who made the hit from this album 20 times bigger than the next biggest song, that's not the New York Times readers. That's young people who heard it in a movie or something like that, right?
Which is why the New York Times lashed out.
Right, exactly.
She abandoned her fan base, her hot white cum fan base,
Right.
What
about my hot white cum?
What about my rich white cum? I don't know.
You used to like cold cum. What happens?
Ew.
It was way more depressing when the cum was cold.
Cold and gold.
I think a negative review at the end of the day should be speaking to the artist as opposed to the consumer. Because, if the review is negative, it's starting off that way, it should be full. If you're reviewing something, it should be encouraging, these are the things that's missing, and it made me sad, as opposed to this dribble diarrhea bullshit. You can't. That doesn't help. That serves the writer, but no one else. It doesn't. When I hear a movie review or something that's constructive, or about here's how you could participate in something, I can see what you're trying to do, and I think you
here's the historical context for what this album is attempting to do,
right, and
kind of just accepting that as a fact of nature, instead of being some music is just inherently evil.
Yeah, Lucy, can I ask you a question? Because I think you're the only one of us that didn't go to art school. Did you ever take a class in journalism?
No, I never took a class in journalism. Why me?
I did. I almost majored in journalism.
That makes me upset for
I was
journalism.
very nearly going to try to be a journalist with my life.
Then you found out that Dragon Ball Z doesn't have a newspaper.
They wouldn't let me move to Japan.
Well, I guess like
Jeremy realized that there wasn't much of a market for finding plot holes in Degrassi. It was not established that they were learning instruments.
How do they know how to play music?
There actually is. Yeah, I would have made a lot of money
You
off of
look
that.
for it.
No, the true and sad answer is that I had more credits in history when I had to declare my major.
Well, I just think it's interesting because I think that criticism is like the one piece of journalism that is allowed to like be partisan, you know, like famously the New York Times will be like, oh, we can't write about, you know, Roe versus Wade in a way that people will think that we're not partisan. Like, obviously you can't have fucking emotions and be a human being.
Right.
But somehow you're allowed to let that slip if you're screaming about the movie Jack Frost. That's right. I brought it up a third time.
It'll never go away.
It's the new Knuckles the Hedgehog.
Hi, I'm Jack the Frost Hog. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it's like the one piece of journalism where it's like totally fine to kind of go off the rails.
Right.
Yeah, and like op-eds and shit like that.
Yeah.
Like I almost feel like you're right that like the journalistic voice could actually benefit review culture a little bit. Like I almost feel as though in a lot of these cases the problem isn't the review itself, but rather that there is a number attached to it. Like,
Right.
we talked in the Jet episode, and Jordan, you and I talked on the thing that we just did for Korn, talking about the idea of like when you give something, for example, a 10 out of 10, you are invariably setting people up to have a bad relationship with an album. Because all you're ever going to hear when you listen to a 10 out of 10 is this 10 really?
Well, you're
and
actually
with a zero,
Is this
the
10
same
in
sort of
my
thing.
eye? Yeah.
and you're
in my
not
ears?
giving the artist anything, or you're not helping them out necessarily because they're going to incur the backlash of people being like, fuck you, this isn't a 10. Like,
Yeah,
where do you
exactly.
get off?
Right.
And so in the case, I was thinking about it with movies because I'm like, if somebody gave a movie a bad review and said, this movie's stupid, it's full of plot holes, like Bryn, my co-host, was just telling me about the movie Moonfall, and she was like, it's stupid, it's so full of plot holes, it's so full of nonsense, like the whole thing doesn't make any sense, it doesn't even follow its own logic, whatever. But without having a number attached to it, I was like, that sounds really funny, I would love to watch that, you know?
Right.
Like, yeah, like giving stuff an objective voice like that would kind of, or a subjective voice would benefit, I think.
Even moving on from that, I think an interesting thing about a lot of movie reviews when they're negative these days is that I guess maybe it's just because of Twitter and all of the negative reviews I see are just like, this Marvel movie is like a Marvel movie and I hate it. Like they're all negative towards the studio. Like no one's mad at the director because they know how the system works. Like everyone going into a Marvel movie knows that it's going to have all these things, and that's usually the complaint. And it's people reviewing it like praising the person for trying to work within a system that is limited and made to be a factory to be enjoyed by as many people as possible. And it's very strange that even within music, you don't see the same people, even with everyone speaking, all these artists speaking out about how like my label is making me make TikToks. I have to make songs that can fit on TikTok or work for TikTok. That even when that album comes out, people still are reviewing it as if it's an artist with like full creative freedom or whatever.
Right.
Or like there's no blame on the industry. It's only within movies when it's also clearly like, yeah, Emily, you were right. Liz Phair put this record out on Capitol Records, which is not the label that she puts out. What is it?
Exile in Guyville?
That's on Matador.
That's on Matador. So it's there. She's on a different label. She has different expectations, and it's weird that like, you know, that very quickly it felt like movie reviews, you can talk about a movie studio or a producer. Like producer interference is a big part of movies for years, even before Marvel nonsense. And that got talked about in reviews, but it's never talked about in a music review. It's talked about in retrospect, and I think that that's interesting. And to say the least, it's interesting. If not hypocritical and fucked up.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's because movies, like, they invariably have like a huge number attached to them, right? There's like, that like The Matrix cost like whatever. I'm just going to throw out a number that's probably going to sound really stupid in retrospect. $100 million. Like,
Right.
What? It's $100 million.
How much cum could you buy with that?
but you have these like big numbers attached to them. So like in the layperson's mind, you're like, well, everybody makes money on a movie and whatever. Like with music, I don't know. There's like some expectation for some reason, or at least there was with Gen Xers in particular. Like there was some expectation that musicians were supposed to not make money.
Yeah.
And the idea of ever trying to make money was like, well, then you don't really fucking care about the music, do you?
Well,
Totally.
I can tell you why that is though, and why like there's no indie Marvel movie. You don't like make a Fantastic Four hoping that one day Marvel will see you and take it and be like, let's adapt that into the Fantastic Four. Like, I mean, obviously
because
there's
you
fan films.
can't. You can make a movie with CGI though, and then get to make
But
a Marvel
that's
movie.
not the point. The point is, yes, you're right. You can't do that. So the reason why you can talk about studio interference and not music interference in that way is because that the end goal, if you're trying to get money to make an album, is to make something where you get sucked up by one of these studio systems. Whereas like with a movie, the studio system is the one that's creating it and they're putting the team together. You know what I mean? Like,
No, that's not totally true.
I also have a theory about that comparison, which is probably that what we already mentioned, which is that an artist is a person that has a personality and that you look at and you're like, that's a person, versus a movie that's a movie. It's a thing. But if you're looking at an individual and you're like, you're supposed to be artistically pure. That's what I come to your art for, is that you're supposed to be artistically pure. So, I mean, I remember that attitude because I was in music school. I went to music school in 2005. And I remember like explicitly saying, because I think to my boyfriend or something, like, I would never like sell out and play in Avril Lavigne's band. I literally said Avril, like that was the reference that I made. And I remember a few years later, I was like, oh, I would absolutely play in Avril's band. I would love to sell out. And he was like, are you serious? We were not together anymore, but we remain friends to this day. But he still was in that mindset where he was like, really, you would do that? And I was like, in a heartbeat, I would absolutely do it. Because as soon as I started going out and playing music, I was like, oh yeah, like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment on the like that is I've been pro selling out since like high school. I'm like, some of these albums are really good, guys. You guys are really ruining your own time. I don't know. But yeah, I think making a movie and making an album can sometimes be the same thing, because sometimes you are an artist, but that also is like you're an auteur, or who's directing and writing your own.
You.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like it's so hard to internalize when you're watching. Like emotionally, it's hard to internalize, even if it's like an auteur film that it came from one person. Like it's like there's so many elements. There's like the person who made the room they're shooting in look a certain way. There's the person who did the costumes. There's like I was watching Barton Fink recently, and I was just like, how did they set those hallways on fire without killing everyone? Like it's like, it's like, and that's like
Someone
an auteur
did that.
film. Like yeah. So it's like, I think it's like people don't as much like emotionally internalize it. Like this is one person's statement, like about themselves,
I do think that in like negative film criticism, the blame can fall on like sometimes on like one person. Like,
sure, yeah.
If it's a big actor kind of like that whose name gets the movie greenlit, if it doesn't do well, it's the actor's fault.
But know why that is because they sign these crazy NDAs where they can't they have to take all the blame. That's why Josh Trank got like kicked out of the system, because he disowned the Fantastic Four movie before it came out, and it took him like 5 years before he could make something. And I read this thing. Oh, what?
I'm friends with him.
Whoa, cool.
I know him. Anyway, sorry.
Chronicle's a good movie.
Chronicle's a good movie.
That's a Marvel movie that's indie.
Also, I hate to tell you this, but Emily, you just broke the NDA for the show. You're not allowed to talk about
Oh no!
Josh Trank, so
All right.
we have to kick you off.
I'm ready. I'll drink all of your white hot cum as punishment. All right, let's wrap it up.
I wish you didn't say that. Favorite best songs, worst songs.
I do have a.
Emily's got a boat to catch.
It's rock hard.
Jesus
out.
fucking Christ.
I'm sorry.
Disgusting.
I have a white hot out.
There it is.
Oh, best songs, worst songs.
Yeah.
I feel boring because I always pick the first. I'm like a first song, like
Me too,
an opening
dude.
track. Dude, I love an opening track.
Yeah, I had a
the fuck
girlfriend in
outta
college who relentlessly made fun of me for only listening to the first song of every album.
Dude, sometimes it's just like a good opener.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love it?
Listen, extraordinary. It honks. I like. It had the goddess line, like super. I was like, this shit is sick. I love this song.
Big horn. Big horn.
Big horn. Beep. Beep to this whole album, but especially that song. Worst song is probably, I don't know. I liked all of it. I don't know. Take a Look. I don't remember what that was. I don't remember that song, so I guess that's my least favorite. But I kind of didn't have a least favorite. This is the best album we've ever listened to on this show. Easy number one. Easy number one for me.
Yeah, definitely K-Fed and then this. I'm 100% with you. I agree. Okay, I think my favorite song was Firewalker.
Yeah, it kicked ass.
I like can't hear any of these songs in my head right now, but I wrote down that I really liked it. It had the angst, but it was still pretty poppy and like just a well-produced song. And I think my least favorite was the song Favorite.
Oh,
that one did sound kind of commercial poppy in a way that I didn't like.
My favorite, yes, probably is Extraordinary. The guitar tone is incredible. I really love that. I also obviously had a very emotional experience with Little Digger, which is not a very common thing for me on this show. So honorable mention there. Least favorite, gonna say probably Rock Me, just because I think I've heard too many people say Rock Me in my life. I don't think I need to hear somebody say it again. And I think that they do the like guitar drum hit on the syllables too many times. Just a few too many for me. So that's probably my least favorite. And that's it.
I think my favorite, it would be a toss-up between Little Digger and It's Sweet. I really like the lyrics in It's Sweet. I thought it was like a cool little story that like actually made me nostalgic for some of like my early days living in the city. And Little Digger was just very cool and weird and unexpected. Least favorite, I really didn't dislike any of them. I mean, maybe Why Can't I? Just because I remembered, I don't know, it just took, even though I like the song, it did take me back to a time when I was hearing it everywhere. And I was like, this is a little, like, it's still somehow played, even though I haven't heard it in years.
I was a legitimate, I like headbanged. I was fucking so into it, genuinely. Even though I had similar feelings, it came on and I was like, I'm so happy this is her song. That fucking kicks ass. Good for her.
No, I'm completely splitting hairs. It was still pretty fun.
I think my favorite was Little Digger, actually, because it just like, it was really emotional and I wasn't expecting that, especially like knowing that the older Liz Phair stuff was kind of her being a character. And so this idea of her actually like telling the truth about her life, I thought was really fascinating. And obviously it's like, to me, that's way funnier than Hot White Cum, like to actually put a truth bomb in and then talk about cum and getting laid. That's really funny. I actually loathed the song Love Hate because that was the one where I could see through and I could see the machine. And I was like, this is the one that feels the least like you wrote it. All of the lyrics, it felt like something someone would yell over like a John Philip Sousa march. It's real weird. Didn't like it.
Sounded kind of like Springsteen-y, I remember.
That's why I still forgave it because I liked that.
All right.
It does have it's because of the little synth. Yeah,
The production was great, and actually, I really liked the sound of all of these. Liz Phair is one of the first musicians where I ever like knew what a lyric was. Like, I famously am stupid.
Yeah.
So I was, I was like trying to
famous
listen.
stupid man. Drew
What do you mean
Kaufman.
you knew what a lyric was?
Oh, you never hear like someone talk about how they didn't know the words to Semi-Charmed kind of life. Like they didn't know it was about smoking crystal meth, even though they say smoking crystal meth in the song.
I didn't know that.
In one ear out the other, it's just like, oh, do, I am dumb, fuck,
Yeah,
Right. So this is the first album. Like she's the first person that you like heard the lyrics of as not gibberish. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was like hearing fucking Run and being like, oh shit, this is like Weird Al, except for she's serious. Like I know what she's saying.
Just like Weird Al.
Just like Weird Al. We simply must move on though.
That's the way to
Loves
describe
hot
dramatic
white
lyrics.
cum.
Let's do plugs.
Let's do those plugs.
Gerbery.
Was that me?
Yeah.
sure is.
I am gonna not plug my Twitter or my podcast again. And this week I'm going to plug a YouTube EDM DJ guy that I found called Partyboy69. He's incredible. His sets are very fun, very enjoyable. If you like house music, dance music, whatever you call it, I don't really know these genres very well. I just know I like listening to it and doing the Kermit the Frog hands when the big parts come on. Good fun. Check it out.
I'm Emily Panic, and I'm going to plug the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. So please donate.
Shouts out.
Great job, lads. And so anyway, you should support local abortion funds because abortion is healthcare and etc. Anyway, there's an Instagram account literally called Abortion Funds, and they will link you to abortion funds. And donating locally is better than Planned Parenthood, which is very well funded. So just look to help support women, uterus having people as much as you can, and donate money if you can.
Absolutely. Directly to the like, if you do the ones that split the money up, like that's fine, but picking a specific one is more helpful.
And hey, if you want a recommendation for a specific one, you can donate to the Blue Ridge Abortion Fund. It's in Virginia. And Virginia is probably going to be a pretty important stronghold for women who are coming from other states to get abortion care. So you can donate there or any number of other abortion funds. Yeah. And hey, listen to Comp too. Why not?
Why not?
White hot comp.
Yes.
I would bet Illinois is probably going to be an important one too, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there's a
Yeah, I
bunch
didn't
of...
think about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm just thinking about geography.
Ohio and Missouri.
Hey, this is Drew Kaufman, and I really don't want to follow any of that. So have a great night. Nelly Furtado's 2006 album Lose whips ass. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.